hello again. This is Heath Robinson with Topaz Labs, and I am excited to be hosting, and I'm even more excited to be welcoming back Joe Reardon to present with us how he unleashes his artistic vision with Impression 2. Joe, are you there?
I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Joe.
My pleasure. Glad to be back.
And I've got it. I'm able to see Lightroom right now.
Excellent.
All right, take
So
it
we've
away.
got a number of images here. We'll start with the Lightroom. Let me move this little panel thing out of the way. There we go. So we'll go into the Develop module, and I'm going to do all of the same typical edits that everybody that uses Lightroom does. There's nothing fancy here. We'll adjust for exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, maybe clarity if it needs it, and I will tweak the luminance values and or saturation in hue if needed, and then I'm going to set my profile correction for the particular lens that I want, and if needed I'm going to use a little bit of dehaze depending on the color content of this particular image. So nothing fancy here, just straightforward Lightroom. I do all my post-process in Photoshop with Topaz plugins and stay away from Lightroom other than using it as a base in the database. So let's bring this in, and one of the things I'm going to do initially is open this up as a smart object. I'm not sure how many of you folks are using smart objects and smart filters, but Topaz works great with this. And the thing that I like about smart filters, smart objects, is you can go back in and make further tweaks to that same edit that you initially made without destructing. It's a non-destructive process, if you will. So my go-to always, if it's a color photograph, I'm going to go in and use Topaz Adjust. As always, it's a sticky software, so it remembers the last setting that it used. So I have a couple of presets that I'll go to a lot, and most of the time I will just change the adaptive exposure just a little. I'll keep it under 30, somewhere in the 20-ish range, and I'm going to keep my regions a bit less, maybe half of that. Adjust the contrast a little bit, just a little bit up. And I'm going to show you what this looks like before and after. So what you can see is what Topaz Adjust has done for us. Let's open this up just a bit, and it's made this exposure normalized. So we're going to press OK. Now I'm going to add in a few plugins on this particular image to get the final look once we get into Impression. So one of the things I do want to do is make these edges a little bit more defined. So the plugin that we'll use will be Simplify. Again, reset. And I'm just going to come in here to the edges. Turn the Simplify edge down. Reduce weak, reduce small, because I just want the edges to pop just a little bit, because I know what it'll look like in the final image with Impression. And you can see before, after, a slight difference, but enough to give it a little bit of a pop. We'll press OK here, and we're going to go into our next one will be Impression 2. This is the latest version. I just downloaded this version 2.03 last night, and we're going to move this out of the way. There we go. Reset that, and I have already saved a lot of my today's plugins into my effects. So this one is going to be Impression Monet 2. Sorry, favorites. Monet 1, Monet 2. We'll click this. Now from here, it's a creative license. You can do whatever you feel like doing to make that image look the way you want. I'm going to make some small adjustments to come out with the final image I hope is very pleasing to me. I'm going to pick this particular brush, set it on high, and then I'm going to come down and tweak just some areas here. Change the brush size just a little bit. Take that smudge out just a little bit. And then we're going to come into lighting, because I like the lighting coming in from this direction. Let's see where it came in there. We'll move that. There. I'm going to add a little bit of vignette around this, as I sure want that to come in a little bit darker. Color. All right, so now one of the big features within the new Topaz Impression 2 is the ability to come in and mask away areas that you do not wish to have completely painted look. So I'm going to switch to my Wacom tablet, and we're going to go in and make some settings here, changes with the brush setting. Keep the radius about there. Change the strength to about 12, 13. We'll put it very soft, and now we're going to just draw with the Wacom tablet areas that I want not painted away. So you can see that it is following the Wacom tablet, and I'm bringing back the stem of this particular flower to go back in. Use it tended to blend into the background. Bring a little bit of this flower back in here. And a little bit of this one. It's a little difficult to draw this type of thing with a mouse. The Wacom tablet makes it much, much easier. If you don't have one, think about it. Because I don't want this to be a completely painted look. But I do want this to be somewhat muted. I know that my art friends and my painting friends, they tend to look more at shapes than they do at details. As photographers, we tend to go all after something that's crystal clear, sharp, and very, very, very detailed. And painters, they tend to look at shapes to define their image, just so you can get a hint of it. At least that's been my experience. So as you can see, this is where we started. This is the before. This is where we're at now. And I think I want a little bit more vignette to come in to isolate that a little bit more. Turn the strength up a little bit. Kind of liking this a lot. So I want to show you a little bit something else here while we're at it. I'm going to show you how we can save this image or save this effect to a new effect so that you can upload this to the community. So we're just going to call this anything, J.R. Monet. And what we want to put this in impressionistic, and press favorite because I want to keep it there. Press OK. Now if I wanted to go back, this will be there forever and ever. Now this is my J.R. Monet, and I can press the share button here, and it'll automatically go to the community. So that's for everybody to use. If you go into the community, you can see the other effects that other people have made, and you can download these just by pressing the download button, and it'll come into your, and you can make it a favorite. Quite a few of them, as you can see. All right, so we're good with this one, and I'm going to press cancel. Don't want to save it at this point. We have more images to take a look at. We'll close this out. So, number 2 image for today, we are going to pick this seascape I shot down in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, just recently. As you can see, I've already made my adjustments for exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, all the typical things that everybody normally does. And I want this to have a very strong vignette at the end. So we're going to bring this into and again we're going to go to, in this particular case, we're going to go to Topaz Adjust. We'll reset this. Now I want a very warm tone to the sunset image here. So I'll press the brilliant warm and use one of the standard presets, but I'm going to tweak this down just a little. Personal taste, half here again. Saturation is okay. I like the adaptive to be a little bit higher, and my regions off a little bit here. Contrast is fine, and protect highlights, I'm going to grab a little bit more just because of that sunset image here. I'll show you before and after. I really like the effect. This is exactly how I remember it looking when I shot the image, with the sun glistening onto these seagrass. So our next step in this process is going to be bring this into clarity a little bit. What I want to point out here is that you can build with the other presets to get your final look. So we are going to just come in here to the sunset one and start that there. We'll back off just a bit. Opacity. Before, after. I kind of like what I've seen here, the contrast through the reeds and the seagrass. Like this. So now we're going to come into one of my favorite painters. We'll reset this. Go into my favorites, and it'll be Turner. The nice thing about the favorites, if you've got one that you use over and over again, whether it's your own creation or one of the presets, it shortens the list, and you can just go in there to grab what you want. This particular one, I've looked at a lot of Turner's work online, and this particular image lends itself to his stylings of work, where he's got a lot of sunsets or suns in the picture. So we will make a few tweaks in here because I want to personalize it to my taste. So we'll change this up to high again. It's one of my favorite things. A little bit more brush strokes. We'll turn that down a little bit. I am going to change this brush a little bit. I like what it did in through the grass here. That particular brush. We're going to turn the paint volume down just a bit. Not too much. It doesn't take too much for tweaking of what you want here. I'll turn the stroke down just a hair, and the stroke length down just a hair as well. And we're going to come into the lighting, as we can see here from the sun it's there, to make sure that that's going right, and it is right about there. The vignette. We'll tweak it off just a little bit. I want that to back off just a little bit, because I do want that sun coming through. Vignette center is fine. And then we're going to come down to the brushing with this particular one. And we're going to brush out with the low opacity a couple of areas. So I'm going to show you today, try and show you all of these today with the color and the brush, the different techniques that you can use to soften the painted look into your image. This particular one, I'm going to turn up the radius because I want large areas, turn the strength down somewhere around 10, 12, around that way, and I'm going to use the hardness down at a real soft brush. We're just going to paint away with the Wacom brush here, all up at different areas, and you can see with the Wacom you can use the hand a little bit better than the mouse works. I want a little bit less painted look in the grass. I'm real happy with the sky. We'll come over here. The nice thing about this impression is, even though you may be picking one of the masters or one of the presets, you can make it your own just by some tweaks around the surfer. And you can see over in the right-hand screen there what's actually being masked away. I may end up going a little bit higher for strength. In fact, I will. And go back over it again. And as I said earlier, the painters, the artist painters, are looking more for shapes than they are detail. And we're, as photographers, a little bit different. So this crossing over into their world is somewhat of a challenge. We'll paint up here again. So what I want to drive here is that in a very short amount of time, you can make a very nice artistic statement with your image. Make sure you pick the right image for converting to a painting. Again, look for something that has shapes, and it'll work much better. They all work, but something with the shapes that draw your eye, like here, 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 here. And then we've got the surfer, which I'm going to zoom in very tight. And we'll turn that brush down more. And I just want to paint this young lady. I remember the night that I shot this, she did her best to get out of my picture, and I kept hollering for her to come back in. I really don't want to see details in this particular person, but I do want to have a little bit more definition in her shape here than a completely painted look. And you can see on the right-hand part of the screen there that I'm masking away what I don't want. All right, so we'll do a before and after. We'll slow down, make sure that everybody can see and follow what I'm doing here. So this is the photograph I made with my adjusting clarity adjustments. And now we've got a painted version, which I'm very pleased with. We'll put that back at the fit. And you can see I'm very, very, very happy with this. I'm going to make one minor adjustment back in Photoshop once we leave here. So I'm actually going to press OK on this one. Now I want to bring up a little bit of brightness and have a little bit of snap to it. So I'm going to add a curves, and real soft S curve for a little bit of contrast here. Now, if you're not happy with any of these adjustments, because this is a smart filter, smart object, you can double click on the adjust, clarity, or Topaz Impression right here, or if you want to turn it off, if you think you don't want that clarity in there, just turn it off. Now it's going to go through the motion of running through that particular image, and it's going to update all of them, but it takes pretty short amount of time to do this. And then it's going to come back, and now clarity's gone out of there. And again, if you wanted to take a adjust out, you could just by clicking on it, put clarity back in, and again, it'll run through the process and then finish back where you left off. It's a nice feature to have when you're running a non-destructive process, the ability to go backwards and make additional tweaks. If you wanted to change a little bit on the blending mode here, or the opacity, double click here, and this will bring up the screen where you can change the opacity here, down, so you get a little bit less effect of that particular filter. Or you could change the blend mode to something else. That's a little too contrasty for my taste on this particular image, but we can turn this opacity down so it has a little bit less effect on the overall picture. Just press OK on the clarity. So what I wanted to highlight here is the smart filters with the Topaz gives you extreme flexibility to be able to go in and retweak your edit instead of building layer upon layer upon layer over and over again. And it's all non-destructive. So I'd be real happy with this one. And we'll close this out, and we won't save it. We'll go on to one more. This one I'll take very much a lot slower. I have my list here of which ones. 218. Now we're going to do a little bit of a cityscape. I just shot this maybe a month ago with a good friend and very talented photographer for a client. This is actually in Boston at the Public Gardens. We were there at 7 a.m. in the morning. So again, all of the standard Lightroom adjustments that you would expect and which everybody is doing. I try not to do my editing, my total editing in Lightroom at all. And we always go into Photoshop because it's one heck of a lot more powerful. Okay, so we start here, and my go-to is always, if it's a color photograph, adjust. Now we'll reset this because I remembered the last one, and that's a little, last one is actually a lot too strong for this particular image. So we're going to come into adaptive. I'm only going to make some minor tweaks here, very minor. So I just want those shadows opened up just a little bit here, and you can see with a space bar, before and after, just enough. I got the feel for it's an early morning shot. So we're going to go into next will be directly into impression. It's not always necessary to go through 2 or 3 plugins or even 4, but sometimes just 2. Adjust, and now into impression. And we'll reset this. And we're going to show you Oil Paint 2, which is my favorite for this particular type of image because it gives a little bit more detail, which I'm going to show here in the buildings. Again, one of my favorite things to do is a lot more brush strokes. So we'll set that to high. I am going to set this down a little bit and a little bit less on the paint volume. If we zoom in, you can see what it's doing to these lovely trees in the background. It does have a painted look as I go through and grab that. And if you like to paint in a zoom level like this, you sure can. So you can see the cause and effect real close, which I'll leave this one at. And I know here, smudge was a little heavy and a little bit heavy in the spill. The lighting, I want to make sure it's coming the direction that the sun was that morning, and it was coming from over here. There we go. Right about there was over my left shoulder. And we're going to not put a texture in the background for this particular one, and we're going to go in and mask. Let me bring this down so you can actually see what's going on. And we're going to mask this time with color, a color range. Now the blue, I didn't want the painting look in the sky or on some of these buildings, and certainly not in the blue of the water. So we're going to set the hue into the blue range, and we'll set the range somewhere here. If it's turning gray, if it's turning black, it's blocking all of it, and if it's white, it's letting you through. It's standard masking of black conceals and white reveals. And this time we're using the color range of the particular image to get the effect we want. And as you can see, I'm picking up and keeping a lot of the detail in the building, but still maintaining the painted look over here on the trees and the grass and all of the colors in this aspect here. It's a little bit more realistic painting look than not using the mask. And I think I'd be very, very happy with this. We'll save this. And I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. you use the smart filters, it brings up the filter that you had clicked on. It goes through the motion, but here, I'm just going to turn this down just a skosh, maybe to about 80, 82%. We'll leave the mode at blend mode at normal. And you can use the preview button here to see what you're getting. We'll press OK. Now I think I've achieved the look I like. I know a number of my artist friends or painting friends have painted this particular scene, and this is very reminiscent now of the stylistics that they do when they come down and paint at the Public Garden in Boston here. A little bit of detail in the buildings, just enough shape in there. Do you recognize it's a building? And you have a lot of the painted look, painted look on the trees and the grass. So I'd be happy with this one. We'll close it, not save it. So we're going to try something a little bit different. I'm actually moving faster than I thought. It's probably too fast for everybody, but we're going to try something with black and white. And we'll start with this particular image. All right. And again, all my standard Lightroom adjustments to get the image where I want it. We shot this maybe a month and a half ago down at Mystic, Connecticut in the Seaport. If those of you that live on the East Coast and the Northeast, if you ever get a chance to visit, it's a wonderful treasure trove of opportunities. So we will go into Photoshop. And we're going to go directly into black and white effects. Now I know that within Impression there is the ability to desaturate. It's just going to turn it into a gray level. That may be okay for the particular image you're working on. This particular one, I want to be able to bring up some differentiation in this ship, on the mast because it was a different color, and in the boat itself. So we will reset this. I'm going to just go for the standard classic. Take a look at what they've got here. I do want to make some adjustments to boost the blacks. Like the black in that boat now. Minus this. And adaptive. This is the standard default for classic look. And I like to add a few more regions for this particular image. And we're going to do a little protection of the highlights since we've got enough of them here. And I like to do details independently. Color sensitivity. Well, I know that ship's mast was yellow, so I want to bring that up just a little bit. And the blue from the water, the sky, bring down a little bit. That building was a little bit red. Just bring it up a little bit. As you can see, the before and the after of using some of these sliders within Topaz Black and White Effects. Now I'm not sure which color filter I want to use at this point, so I'm just going to press the buttons at the top here to see which look works best with this particular image and for the final look that I want. And I think I like this one right here about the best. We'll press OK. Again, creative license, you can do anything you want within this program to give it the look that you want. Now, this particular image presented somewhat of a challenge because I know that when I go through Impression, it's going to block up all of this rigging up in the mast up here. So in order to keep that, I'm going to go into Simplify. Very easy step, and I actually use this particular program in an awful lot of my images when I want to get a little bit more definition on some of the edges. So there are global, and we'll just take edges. And I'm going to put this as a fine, mono, and set the simplify back to zeros. The reduce weak and reduce smalls back to zeros. And if you watch here, as I make the adjustment with the slider, you'll actually see the ringing on that thicken up right there. I'm going to go too much to have it too completely blocked up, but that's enough. And I know it looks maybe a little bit over, but once we get it into the next program, you'll actually be able to see this defined as the way I like. So we're in going into impression now. And we will do a reset here, and I'm going to make some minor adjustments. And this is the one where I actually use color pencil 3, because I wanted this to have a little bit of a sketch look. And I think right off the top you can see choosing this sketch look, I've already taken the color out of it. I've maintained what I want here. The rigging is now defined without losing itself in the painting look. So we're going to go to high. Turn it down just a hair. Stroke width a little bit, stroke length a little bit, negative. Smudge is already at 0. This would be where you would set this to a gray level and just take the saturation down to 0. Well, negative 100, sorry. So there's no color in there whatsoever. But it has no effects since we've already used it in black and white effects. Lightness, I want to drop that down just a skosh there. Now we see a little bit of the black coming in, a little bit more defined. So this is actually going to end up much more of the sketch look that I wanted, or that I envisioned when I started this. And the lighting, I know it's coming from this here, and it shows a very good job of picking it up. I'll move it just a little bit, but it picked up a good, there we go, right about there. As I remember the time of day I shot this. A little bit of a vignette, very little, maybe a little bit more here, and it's going to draw your attention right in to the three-masted ship here. Change the transition a little bit, and the strength, maybe not so much, but enough just to give it a hint. So in the masking, we're going to go with a brush on this one, and we're going to brush out some of the rigging and the mast and some of the ship, because I really do want this to come in and look like it's a sketch. Turn the radius down, strength way down. I typically like to go in around 10 to 15 on the strength, and hardness always it's a soft brush. You can build when you start out slow. We'll come in with the Wacom tablet again, and I'm just going to trace the best that I can here in the rigging area, so it comes in a little bit more defined. And I don't quite want a painted look through there. And again, using a mouse is difficult, but the Wacom tablet, with my shaky hands, it's fairly straightforward and easy to do. So I just want some definition in here. If you remember the old Impression 1, if you wanted to do this, you sure had to make some masks and go outside of the program to be able to do this. And it was a long process, not extremely difficult, but a long process to make your image and then envision what you needed to isolate in a mask, paint away. Not so easy. But here, you're staying within the program. It's a nice feature that they've added to Impression 2. What I'm trying to achieve here is some definition into the main subjects here and leaving the trees and some of the water here as a sketch look and having just a little bit more definition into some of the building and the ship. This tree here a little bit. And this bench here, the windows, just a little bit more definition. It really does look like a sketch. It's actually one of my favorite looks within Topaz Impression 2. It's the sketch look. And the key always is experimentation. Experimentation, experimentation. There is no wrong choice here. And if you like a look that you've achieved, save it as a favorite to the community, just rename it, and it's there for you and it's there for everybody else. I'm pretty happy with this. A little bit realistic look, but definitely looks like it's a sketchwork painting. And you can see what I've masked out here on the right-hand side. Really not difficult, and you saw how quick that this can be achieved. Press OK on this, and you can see the final look. So I'm going to make one last adjustment. My favorite thing here is curves. Bring a little bit here, and just a little bit of an S-curve, and it gives me a little bit of added contrast on my image. I'm real happy with this. I bring down the blacks just a little bit, so there's some definition between the lights and the blacks. It's minor, minor, minor S-curve. And again, you'll see that the file size hasn't grown tremendously with the addition of the Smart Filter Smart Objects. If you were doing this the old way, where you would make Control-J for a new image and then make one effect with, say, black and white effects, another Control-J and do another one with Simplify, another Control-J and do Topaz Impression. Now you're building and building and building way too many layers here, and you're going to end up with a very large file. Now, I mean, that's okay once you flatten it, but if you choose not to flatten it, you're going to eat up a little bit of disk space, and a lot of folks like to print right from the file that's not flattened out. I totally love this new program and what I can do with it. This, as I said, this was not a nightmare, but it was a challenge to envision what the final product should look like when you had to make mask after mask after mask and make selections and paint away. And now within the program itself, it's just so much easier. It's been part of my workflow since they first came out, and I tested it, and I really liked it. The big thing with Smart Objects is that you can go back into any edit that you've made, whether it's a curves or it's a Topaz plugin, or any edit that you make, or any filter that's available within Photoshop, and yours is a filter. And you can make adjustments, and you can go back in and retweak something to your heart's content, and if you don't like it, do it again in a non-destructive manner. And that, let me open this one up, and we'll start. And I'll show you. It's just so much better. We'll start with my favorite, again, and adjust, and I'm going to make very, very light adjustments here. I really like the image here, some nature, some trees. So we'll just come in, and I'll spend a lot more time on the Smart Objects and Smart Filters. Again, this is all subjective. You can tweak. Some folks like the HDR look, the over-the-top look. Not particularly for me. It's certainly, I'm not so sure it does well in the painted look. You just want to look for shapes, not so much in the way of details. As a photographer, you're looking at details, and as a painter, they go just for shapes. So I'm just going to make some minor adjustments there, and we'll come in. So let me show you in Topaz Adjust with this smart filter. I could turn this off just by unclicking. It's gone. On, back in, but it's going to go through the cycle and bring it through. Now, if I wanted to go back in and make another adjustment in Topaz Adjust with the smart filter, keep in mind that when in the old way, the other way, if you did a Control J and then made your filter adjustments on that, you were locked into that. You had to start all over again. You were doomed. With Topaz Adjust as a smart filter, we just double click on it, and it remembered exactly where I left off. And you remember it only used the adjust. Now I can make another adjustment if I want. So as you saw, I just made some other adjustments in here, all by using the smart filter and clicking on it. Now this is going to show up here. Like unclick this, it's gone. And if I wanted to go in and change the blending mode, we click on this side of the filter. Double click, and you see the pop-up comes up to the blending options. If I wanted to change this, real quick you can see it. So overlay tends to be a little bit more contrasty, soft light as well. If I wanted to go in and use luminosity, you can see the different blending modes you can use here. It's very quick. We'll go back into normal. So I guess I look at it as maybe like a safety net, and it allows you to go back in and make some further tweaks to it. You look at your image and say, oh God, I made a mistake, and you can go back in and change things here. So we're going to bring this one up now. We're going to go right into clarity, because I want a little bit of contrast in here. You'll see at the end, very, very minor. I'm going to come into general, and I'm just going to do a little micro contrast. Not a whole lot. You can see the difference here, and I might make a little bit of adjustment with the luminance. I know that the green, sometimes there's a little bit of yellow in it. Make it darker there. Make the green a little bit lighter. This was shot in Ireland, by the way. The greens are really green. All right, so now I'm going to go into Topaz Impression. Now, before I do, I think I want to bring up a little bit of edge to these trees here. We'll go into Simplify. And if I don't like what I do here, then certainly you can turn off that particular filter. That's the nice thing about smart filters. Again, we'll go into, let's try this one over here. I actually like this one. Give a little bit more detail in the branches. So turn that off, turn that off, turn it off, turn it off. And you can see what's going on with the edge strength. This is real good, so you can see with this mask here, white mask, what you're actually increasing for your edges. So everywhere you're seeing a little bit of an outline of a shadow, that's what's going to be increased. If I go to the combined and turn this on and off, you can see it's got a little bit different look, a little bit more definition. So don't be afraid to use this for some of your landscapes, because it really is a nice feature. It's actually part of my regular workflow here when I'm making a landscape with a lot of structure like this. So now we're going to go into Topaz Impression 2 again. Heath, are there any questions coming up that I'm not covering?
Sorry, it took me a while to find my mute button. No, you're doing a fantastic job.
All right, appreciate it. All right, so we're going to go back into my favorites, and I like one here called Fine Brush Scumble. It's a new preset in Topaz. You can see what a nice look it's given me here. I tend sometimes when I photograph is to move my camera, so I get this look of softness in some of the image. I'm getting that in this particular one, but I don't want it to be over. So I'm going to change a few things, obviously with my high, because I personally like more paint volume. I'm going to turn down just a hair in the large paint volume. This particular one, I like this this new preset. I'm not sure who devised this back at Topaz, but it's a great one.
That was actually me.
Nice. All right, so we're not going to touch the color. Go over it. I think you can see some of the hue and saturation. You can change things a little on my card for my taste, but that's what that does. Just by changing some of the saturation, you can make it, this is a little bit saturated. I'm going to turn that down because I don't want it over the top. Maybe just a little bit, a few, and the overall lightness. That's two dark shadows with going too dark. A little bit. There we go. And we will go into lighting. So I knew it was coming in from this angle here. And we'll move that. You can see that it actually is. Texture. We've got a texture on this of Canvas 1. And this is all personal interpretation of what you like and what you think feels the best with your particular image. Let's try moving this to concrete, and I'm going to turn that straight up a little bit, and maybe the texture size just a little bit of that background. Okay, so I'm going to masking. Luminosity, I'm not sure I covered this one, but what you can see here, the range, and it's just going to take out some. Wherever you see it black, it's taking it away, and wherever it's white, it's letting it all through. And you can change this to its, giving you a little bit different effect here. You can see the background images that being a little bit more affected versus the trees, and you can change the range. So it's given just a little bit of everything here. And I'm going to go right about here. So I'm taking away a little bit of the background. I'll do a before and after. I really like this look of the Scumble tree. E.T. did a great job. We'll press OK. And as always the case with my personal workflow, curves. I want to bring a little bit of that background up so it's popping, really popping. Right about there, a little bit more defined S-curve. So maybe a little bit more contrast through here. The whites are popping in through here. You can see the white showing up in through here. The little flowers on top of the grass. And I think I really like this look a lot. I love this program. It's so simple and easy to use.
Yeah, I'm really actually excited. Impression's quickly becoming, as far as the effect-based plugins that we have, one of my favorite. If you'd like to follow Joe, you can visit his website at joereardonphotography.com, and you can also check him out at facebook.com/Joe Reardon Photography. If you have any questions about the webinar, you can contact us at webinars@topazlabs.com. And if you'd like to register for additional webinars, you can register at topaz.com/webinars. Joe, thank you so much. I think overall this was a great impression presentation. Thank you so much. I know that a lot of people are really excited to get rolling. And if you do have Impression 1 but haven't upgraded to Impression 2, that is a free upgrade. As always, upgrades to Topaz products that you own are free. You can get that directly from our downloads page on our website. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I had a blast.